The message arrived at 3:47 Earth Standard Time, interrupting Dr. Sarah Chen's careful calibration of a failing fusion reactor. The holographic notification pulsed with an unfamiliar signature, a crystalline pattern she had never seen in her 15 years of engineering work. Priority communication from the Galactic Council. The message announced in perfect standard English. Your immediate response is required. Sarah's fingers hovered over the delicate array of tools spread across her workbench. The reactor could wait, she decided, though the engineers at Luna Base 3 wouldn't be happy about the delay. She activated the message with a gentle tap. The hologram that materialized before her took her breath away. A being of pure crystalline structure stood in her workshop, its faceted form catching the light in ways that seemed to defy physics. Council Member Xur, her translator helpfully supplied, Senior Overseer of Technical Innovation. Dr. Chen. The crystalline being's voice resonated with harmonics that made her tools vibrate. We require your assistance with a matter of utmost urgency. Sarah straightened her posture, acutely aware that she was representing humanity in this conversation. I'm honored, Council Member Xur. How can I help? Are you familiar with the Centaurus cluster? Of course. Sarah nodded. Every engineer knew about the Centaurus cluster, home to some of the oldest civilizations in known space, and more importantly, home to the mysterious star engine. The stellar degradation crisis. The crystalline being's facets shifted in what Sarah had learned to recognize as concern. The situation has become critical. We've lost 3 stars in the past solar cycle alone. The star engine remains our only hope of preventing cascade failure across the entire cluster. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The star engine, an ancient device of unknown origin, said to have the power to stabilize dying stars. For centuries, the most advanced species in the galaxy had tried to restore it to working order. All had failed. With respect, Council Member, Sarah chose her words carefully. Why contact me? Earth has only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. Surely there are more qualified. We have exhausted all conventional options, Xur interrupted. 1,000 species, Dr. Chen. 1,000 of the most advanced civilizations in known space have attempted to restore the engine. Each has failed. The Council believes, we believe it is time for a different perspective. The gravity of the situation began to sink in. When do you need me to leave? A transport is already on its way. You have 6 hours to prepare. Sarah glanced around her workshop, at the half-finished projects, the carefully organized tools, the familiar comfort of Earth's gravity. I'll be ready. The hologram flickered. Dr. Chen, I must be clear. The chances of success are minimal. Many brilliant minds have been broken by the engine's mysteries. Are you certain you wish to accept this challenge? Sarah picked up her oldest wrench, a simple tool that had never failed her. With respect, Council Member, how can I not? If there's even a chance of preventing those stars from dying, I have to try. Very well. The crystalline being's form began to fade. The transport will arrive at coordinates being sent to your system now. And Dr. Chen. Yes. The Council appreciates your courage. Few would willingly face such overwhelming odds. The hologram vanished, leaving Sarah alone in her suddenly quiet workshop. She looked down at the wrench in her hand, then at the fusion reactor she'd been repairing. The same principles, she thought. Different scale, different technology. But in the end, it all came down to understanding how things worked. She had 6 hours to pack, to say goodbye to Earth, to prepare for a challenge that had defeated 1,000 species. Sarah took a deep breath, set down her wrench, and began to plan. She didn't know if she could succeed where so many had failed, but she knew one thing. She would face this challenge as humans always had, with determination, creativity, and the willingness to try what others might consider impossible. The stars were waiting. The transport ship emerged from hyperspace with a gentle ripple, giving Sarah her first view of the star engine. She pressed her hand against the viewport, trying to comprehend its scale. The structure dwarfed nearby maintenance stations, its silvery surface catching starlight in patterns that seemed almost alive. Impressive, isn't it? The ship's pilot, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, adjusted their course. Even after all these centuries, no one has fully mapped its interior. The quantum matrices are too complex for our best computers to model. Sarah barely heard them. Her attention was fixed on something else, regular patterns in the engine's outer hull that reminded her of maintenance access points on Earth's oldest power plants. "Can you get closer to that section?" she pointed. The pilot complied, maneuvering their small vessel toward a seemingly unremarkable part of the engine's surface. Sarah's suspicions grew stronger. Those weren't random patterns. They were wear marks, the kind that only came from repeated physical contact. The docking procedure took 20 minutes, during which Sarah reviewed the latest data on stellar degradation in the cluster. 3 more stars showed signs of instability. Time was running out. A delegation waited at the airlock, representatives from 5 different species, each more advanced than humanity by centuries. Their leader, a towering figure of interconnected geometric shapes, introduced herself as Chief Researcher Ixel. "We've prepared the main control center for your inspection, Dr. Chen," Ixel's translator conveyed. "Our quantum analysis teams have compiled." "Actually," Sarah interrupted, earning surprised ripples from the assembled aliens, "I'd like to see those access panels first. The ones on the outer hull." Confusion radiated from the delegation. "Those are merely decorative elements," one of them offered. "Our scans show no significant." "Please," Sarah insisted. "Trust me on this." The walk to the access point took longer than she expected. The engine's scale was deceptive. Up close, the marks she'd spotted from the ship were even more telling. Sarah ran her fingers along the metal surface, feeling subtle grooves that spoke of countless openings and closings. "This isn't decoration," she murmured. "This is a maintenance hatch. An old one, designed to be operated manually." She pressed her palm against a seemingly solid section of the wall. With a groan of ancient mechanisms, a panel slid aside, revealing a dark passage beyond. The delegation erupted in surprised chatter. "Impossible," Ixel declared. "Our sensors never detected." "Because you weren't looking for something this simple," Sarah explained, pulling a light from her toolkit. "These marks, they're from tools, from hands. Someone used to come out here regularly to check the systems. Not with quantum computers or AI interfaces, but with basic engineering tools." She shone her light into the passage, revealing more signs of past activity. Handholds worn smooth by use, guide markers etched into the walls. This wasn't the work of an incomprehensibly advanced civilization. This was practical, functional engineering. The beings who built this, Sarah turned to face the delegation. They were more like us than you might think. They understood the value of redundancy, of having manual backups when the advanced systems failed. That's why the quantum interfaces aren't working. They're not meant to be the primary control method. Ixel's geometric form shifted in what might have been uncertainty. "You mean to tell us that this device, capable of stabilizing dying stars, was designed to be maintained by hand?" Sarah nodded, already checking her suit seals. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable. Are you coming?" She gestured to the dark passage. The delegation exchanged looks. After a moment, Ixel moved forward. "We will observe. But Dr. Chen, be careful. 1,000 species have failed to understand this device. We cannot afford another mistake." Sarah activated her suit lights and took her first step into the passage. "Don't worry," she said, patting her toolkit. "Sometimes fresh eyes are exactly what you need. And these eyes have seen a lot of old machines." Behind her, the stars of the Centaurus cluster continued their slow dance toward death, waiting to see if human ingenuity could accomplish what advanced technology could not. The maintenance tunnel stretched deeper into the star engine's core, telling its story through every worn handhold and scratched surface. Sarah's light beam revealed more than just a passage. It showed a history written in metal and time. Look at these markings. She pointed to a series of notches along the wall. They're not random damage. They're measurement points, probably used to check structural integrity. Her hand traced the ancient grooves. Someone came through here regularly, monitoring the engine's health. Ixal's crystalline form shifted in the narrow space. But why not use quantum sensors? Even basic monitoring devices would be more efficient than this. Because sensors can fail, Sarah replied, her light catching something ahead. But these marks, they've lasted millennia. Sometimes the old ways are the most reliable. The passage opened into a circular chamber that hummed with dormant energy. Sarah's breath caught as her lights revealed walls covered in technical diagrams. Not holograms or quantum data storage, but physical engravings carved into the metal itself. "It's a maintenance manual," she whispered, awe filling her voice. The engine's builders left instructions, real physical instructions that couldn't be corrupted or deleted. She studied the nearest diagram. These are cooling system schematics. They look almost like, but that's impossible. Like what? Ixal pressed. Like early fusion reactor designs from Earth. The principles are similar, just on a vastly larger scale. Sarah pulled out her tablet, capturing images of the diagrams. The builders weren't trying to create something incomprehensible. They were using proven engineering concepts, adapted for stellar manipulation. A soft chime from her tablet interrupted her thoughts. The analysis of the chamber's atmosphere had completed, revealing trace elements that made her eyes widen. There's residual organic material here. Carbon, nitrogen, traces of processed metals consistent with tool use. The builders were humanoid, weren't they? The delegation's silence was answer enough. Ixal finally spoke. We had theorized as much, but it seemed impossible. No humanoid species has achieved this level of engineering. Until now, Sarah murmured, her light catching something new. A control panel, covered in dust but remarkably similar to those she'd worked with on Earth. Her fingers found familiar patterns: emergency shutdown, system reset, manual override. The labels were in an unknown script, but the layout spoke a language any engineer would understand. She brushed away millennia of dust, revealing more of the panel. They built redundancy into everything. These aren't just backup systems, they're backups for the backups. Her hand hesitated over a prominent switch. This is why the quantum interfaces aren't working. The engine detected system failures and reverted to manual control, waiting for someone to come and repair it properly. But 1,000 species tried. One of the delegation members protested. The finest minds. The finest minds looked for complex solutions to what they thought was a complex problem. Sarah interrupted. But the builders knew better. They knew that eventually all advanced technology can fail, so they built something that could be fixed with basic tools and understanding. She patted her toolkit. They built something that would last. A distant rumble shook the chamber, reminding them of the dying stars beyond. Sarah made a decision. I need to see more of these maintenance tunnels. The real control center won't be in that quantum interface room. It'll be somewhere accessible, somewhere a maintenance crew could reach quickly in an emergency. You believe you can restore the engine? Ixal's tone held both hope and skepticism. Sarah studied the diagrams one last time before turning toward a promising-looking passage. I think the engine was never truly broken. It's just been waiting for someone to speak its language. Not the language of quantum computing or theoretical physics, but the simple, universal language of mechanical engineering. She took a step into the new tunnel, then paused. The builders left us more than just a machine. They left us a message about the importance of maintaining our connection to the physical world, no matter how advanced we become. We just had to be ready to hear it. The delegation followed as Sarah pressed deeper into the engine's heart, where more secrets waited to be uncovered by hands that understood the wisdom of simplicity. Sarah stood before a massive circular door deep within the engine's maintenance network, her hands running over the intricate locking mechanism. Unlike the quantum-sealed chambers above, this door operated on purely mechanical principles: wheels, gears, and counterweights working in perfect harmony. "This is what we've been looking for," she announced to the delegation behind her. The primary control center. Her fingers found the subtle patterns in the mechanism surface. "It's a combination lock, but not like any I've seen before." Ixel moved closer, geometric form, pulsing with curiosity. "Can you open it?" "Maybe." Sarah pulled out her diagnostic tools, setting them aside in favor of her oldest mechanical stethoscope. "Sometimes you need to listen to a machine to understand it." She pressed the device against the door's surface and began turning the outer wheel slowly. Click, click, click. Each sound told a story. The subtle differences in pitch, the varying resistance in the mechanism. Sarah closed her eyes, letting her other senses take over. This was engineering at its most fundamental level, where intuition and experience mattered more than advanced algorithms. "There," she whispered as a particularly clear tone rang out. One sequence down. The next wheel required a different touch, a different rhythm. The delegation watched in silence as she worked, their skepticism gradually giving way to fascination. 20 minutes later, the final sequence clicked into place. The door's massive gears engaged with a sound like distant thunder, and panels that had been sealed for millennia began to move. "Incredible," one of the delegates murmured. "Our quantum decryption team spent years trying to bypass this door." "Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one," Sarah replied, watching as the entrance slowly revealed itself. The builders wanted this place to be accessible to anyone who understood basic mechanical principles. They just needed someone to listen. The chamber beyond took her breath away. Unlike the sterile quantum control rooms above, this space hummed with life. Massive gears turned slowly along the walls, their movements tracking the positions of stars in the cluster. Mechanical displays showed stellar conditions through elegant clockwork interfaces, and at the center stood a control station that could have been pulled from an ancient Earth power plant. Sarah approached the central console reverently. "Look at this craftsmanship," she breathed, noting how each component was labeled with both text and universal engineering symbols. "Everything's manual, with mechanical backups. No quantum systems to fail, no AI to malfunction. Just pure engineering." She began examining the readouts, her expression growing more serious. "The stellar degradation is worse than we thought. 3 more stars have entered critical phases since I arrived." Her hands moved across the controls, testing responses. "But the engine itself, it's not dead. It's in safety mode. Can you restore it?" Ixel asked. "Better." Sarah smiled, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I can show you how it was meant to be operated." She reached for a large lever, wrapped her hand around its worn grip, and pulled. The chamber came alive. Gears that had been still for centuries began to turn. Displays lit up with mechanical precision, and a deep thrumming filled the air. In the ceiling, a massive orrery activated, showing the positions of every star in the cluster through an intricate dance of metal and light. "This is just the beginning," Sarah explained, her voice filled with wonder. "The engine isn't just a machine. It's a testament to the power of fundamental engineering principles. Every system has manual controls, physical interfaces that can't be hacked or corrupted." She gestured to the surrounding mechanisms. "The builders created something eternal, something that could be maintained and repaired by any species that retained an understanding of basic mechanics." A warning tone rang out, another star showing signs of instability. Sarah turned back to the controls, her expression determined. "Now let me show you how we're going to save your stars. Not with quantum computing or advanced AI, but with good old-fashioned human engineering." Above them, The orrery continued its stately dance, marking the time they had left to prevent a cascade of stellar death. The first test of the star engine systems ended in a shower of sparks and a grinding sound that made Sarah's teeth ache. Emergency shutters slammed down across the mechanical displays as ancient safety protocols engage. What happened? Ixal's crystalline form flickered with concern. Did something malfunction? Sarah was already moving, her diagnostic tools out before the echoes faded. No, she said, studying the readouts. This was deliberate. The safety systems activated exactly as they were designed to. She traced a finger along a series of worn grooves in the control panel. Look at these marks. Someone modified these controls after the engine was built. The delegation crowded closer as Sarah opened an access panel, revealing the intricate mechanical systems within. Her eyes widened as she understood what she was seeing. These components are reversed. Not broken or damaged, deliberately reversed. Sabotage. One of the delegates suggested, their energy form pulsing with alarm. No. Sarah shook her head, pulling out her tablet to compare the schematic she'd photographed earlier. This is too precise, too carefully done. These modifications, she paused, a theory forming. They're a test. The chamber hummed with confused murmurs from the delegation. Ixal moved closer. Explain. Sarah gestured to the exposed mechanisms. Look at how these components are arranged. To understand what's been done here, you'd need to physically examine the system. No amount of quantum scanning or computer modeling would show you this. She smiled suddenly. The builders didn't just want someone who could operate the engine. They wanted someone who would take it apart and understand it. A warning tone interrupted her explanation. Another star in the cluster was showing signs of imminent collapse. Time was running out. I need to go deeper, Sarah announced, gathering her tools. These modifications are too systematic to be random. There must be a reason, a pattern we're not seeing yet. She approached a narrow maintenance shaft that led down toward the engine's core. And I think I know where to look. The core is too dangerous, one of the delegates protested. The energy readings alone are exactly why we need to go there, Sarah finished. The builders left us a trail of breadcrumbs. Each discovery has led us closer to understanding their true message. This has to be the next step. The shaft was barely wide enough for one person. Sarah activated her suit's cooling systems as she descended, the temperature rising with each meter. The walls here were different, covered in more of the physical engravings she'd seen above, but these told a different story. These aren't just maintenance instructions, she called back to Ixal, who had insisted on following despite the tight space. They're teaching notes. Look, each modification to the engine is documented here, showing exactly what was changed and why. She reached a small platform and stopped, her light revealing a chamber that made her heart race. Workbenches lined the walls, covered in ancient tools that could have come from her own workshop. And in the center, a holographic projector. The only piece of advanced technology she'd seen at this level. It's a test chamber, she breathed, understanding flooding through her. The builders used this place to train their engineers. Every modification above was part of a curriculum, teaching future generations how to maintain the engine through hands-on experience. Her hand found the projector's activation switch, simple, mechanical, designed to last millennia. As she pressed it, a message began to play, its contents making her breath catch in her throat. "We've been going about this all wrong," she whispered. "The engine isn't just a machine. It's a legacy. And those modifications upstairs, they're not just tests, they're the final exam." Above them, another star flickered ominously, its light growing unstable. Sarah looked at her reflection in a burnished metal panel, seeing the weight of 1,000 species' hopes in her eyes. She had found the builders' teaching space. Now she just had to prove she had learned their lessons well enough to save the cluster. The holographic message filled the chamber with soft blue light, revealing figures that could have passed for human at a distance. Their message, translated by Sarah's devices, began to unfold the greatest engineering project in galactic history. To those who have found this chamber, the ancient recording began. You have proven yourselves worthy of our legacy. You understand that true engineering is not about technological advancement alone, but about maintaining the wisdom of simplicity. Sarah watched, transfixed, as the figures demonstrated the engine's true purpose. The mechanical systems she'd been studying weren't just for maintaining stars. They were keys to something far greater. The star engine is one of many. The message continued, schematics flowing through the air. A network spans the galaxy, waiting to be awakened. But we could not risk such power falling into the hands of those who would rely solely on advanced technology. The network must be maintained by those who understand its fundamental principles. Look at these connections, Sarah murmured, her fingers tracing patterns in the light. Each engine is designed to link with others, creating a web of stellar stability. She turned to Ixel, excitement building in her voice. The modifications aren't just tests, they're calibration points. The engine needed to be properly tuned before it could connect to the network. The hologram shifted, showing more detailed schematics. Our civilization faced a choice. The ancient engineer explained. We could have built a fully automated system, governed by artificial intelligence and quantum controls. Instead, we chose to create something that could be understood, maintained, and repaired by any species that retained respect for mechanical principles. Warning lights flashed overhead. Another star entering critical phase. Sarah barely noticed, her attention fixed on the maintenance procedures being demonstrated. They built it this way on purpose, she breathed. The mechanical systems aren't primitive. They're perfect. Quantum systems can fail, AI can malfunction, but these basic principles, they're eternal. The final calibration sequence requires precision. The hologram continued. Each component must be adjusted in harmony with the others. Only through understanding the engine as a complete system can one restore it to full operation. Sarah's hands moved across her tablet, documenting every detail. The reversed components upstairs. They're not just testing our ability to spot problems. They're making sure we understand how everything works together. She looked at Ixel. Your quantum scientists tried to analyze each part separately, didn't they? The crystalline being's form rippled with realization. Yes. We never considered that the entire system needed to be understood as a whole. The hologram's final message made Sarah catch her breath. To those who have proven worthy, you now hold the key to stellar stability across the galaxy. The network awaits your touch. But remember, with this power comes responsibility. You must maintain not only the engines, but the knowledge of how to repair them. Never let convenience override understanding. The message faded, leaving the chamber in silence broken only by the distant hum of machinery and the increasingly urgent warnings from above. We need to get back to the control room, Sarah announced, gathering her tools. I know what we need to do, but we'll have to work fast. Those stars won't wait much longer. You believe you can calibrate the entire engine in time? Ixel asked as they climbed back up the maintenance shaft. Not alone, Sarah replied. I'll need help. Not from quantum computers or AI systems, but from engineers who understand mechanical principles. The kind of people who still know how to work with their hands. They reached the main chamber as another warning sounded. Through the mechanical displays, Sarah could see the stellar degradation spreading like cracks through the cluster. She approached the control panel with new purpose, understanding at last what the builders had wanted all along. They weren't looking for the most advanced species, she said, beginning the calibration sequence. They were looking for one that remembered its roots, that never lost touch with the fundamental principles of engineering. They were looking for people like us. The engine hummed around them, waiting to see if humanity would prove worthy of its creator's legacy. Sarah's hands moved across the engine's controls with practiced precision, each adjustment bringing new life to long-dormant systems. The massive chamber thrummed with energy as ancient gears engaged, their rhythmic motion building to a symphony of mechanical power. We'll need to recalibrate everything in sequence, she explained to the team of engineers who had joined her, representatives from species who still maintain traditional mechanical skills. Each system needs to be perfectly tuned before we can attempt full activation. The warning sirens had become constant now. Through the mechanical displays, they could see the cluster's stars pulsing with unstable energy. 3 more had entered critical phase during their preparations. Start with the primary cooling systems, Sarah directed, her voice steady despite the pressure. We need to establish a baseline before we begin power transfer. She demonstrated the calibration sequence she had learned from the builder's message, showing how each adjustment affected the whole. A tall engineer with 4 arms, skilled in maintaining deep space habitats, worked on the thermal regulators. Nearby, a crystalline being fine-tuned the mechanical timing systems, their natural affinity for precision making them perfect for the task. Remember, Sarah called out as she monitored the main display. These systems were designed to work together. Don't just focus on your section. Feel how it connects to everything else. Her hands never stopped moving, making micro-adjustments as each component came online. The engine responded to their touch, centuries of dormant potential awakening. Displays that had been dark for millennia blazed to life, showing the complex dance of stellar forces they were preparing to control. Warning lights flashed red, another star approaching collapse. Sarah felt sweat on her forehead despite her suit's cooling systems. Timing is critical, she announced. When I give the signal, we'll need to synchronize all systems simultaneously. The chamber filled with the sound of machinery as final preparations were made. Sarah studied the readouts, confirming what the builder's message had told her. Success would require more than just technical skill. It would demand perfect coordination between every engineer and every system. Transfer controls to manual, she ordered, reaching for the main activation lever. Around the chamber, her team did the same, each taking responsibility for their section of the engine. The automated systems powered down, leaving them in control of what might be the most powerful machine ever built. Sarah took a deep breath, remembering everything she had learned. The builders had created something that required not just understanding, but intuition. Not just knowledge, but wisdom. Her hand tightened on the lever. On my mark, she called out. Through the displays, she could see the nearest dying star beginning to pulse with dangerous energy. 3, 2, 1. Now. Every engineer moved in perfect synchronization. Levers were pulled, wheels turned, and calibration sequences initiated. The engine's hum rose to a powerful roar as systems that had waited millennia for this moment engage. For one terrible second, nothing seemed to happen. Then Sarah felt it. A subtle shift in the engine's rhythm, a change in its mechanical song. The displays blazed with new information as power began to flow. Hold steady, she called out, making minute adjustments to compensate for the building energy. Keep your systems synchronized. We're almost there. Her eyes never left the stellar display, watching as the engine's influence began to reach the dying stars. The first sign of success came as a change in tone, the warning sirens falling silent one by one. On the main display, the unstable stars began to steady, their wild energy patterns smoothing out under the engine's guidance. It's working, someone whispered, voice filled with awe. Sarah allowed herself a small smile that kept her focus. They weren't finished yet. Prepare for full network activation, she announced, reaching for the final control sequence. This is what the builders were waiting for. Let's show them they chose correctly. Around them, the star engine sang its ancient song of power and precision, ready to reveal its true potential to those who had proven worthy of its trust. The star engine's power built like a rising tide, flowing through systems untouched for countless generations. Sarah watched the displays as energy patterns shifted across the cluster, each dying star responding to the engine's influence. The massive orrery above spun faster, tracking the cascade of changes spreading through space. Network connections establishing, she announced, her voice steady despite the overwhelming nature of what they were witnessing. Each star is being incorporated into the stabilization matrix, exactly as the builders designed. Through the chamber's observation ports, they could see the nearest unstable star beginning to steady. Its violent pulses smoothed out, raw stellar power brought under control by machinery that bridged the gap between simplicity and sophistication. "Look at these readings," one of the engineer team members called out, their crystalline form glowing with excitement. "The stellar degradation is reversing. The engine isn't just stopping the collapse, it's healing the damage." Sarah nodded, making fine adjustments to the main control panel. The builders understood something we almost forgot. Complex problems don't always need complex solutions. Sometimes you just need the right tools and the wisdom to use them properly. A new light caught her attention, a signal she hadn't seen before. As she watched, more lights began to appear on the stellar map, spreading out far beyond their cluster. "What's happening?" Ixel asked, moving closer to study the display. Sarah smiled, understanding dawning in her eyes. "The network is awakening. Each engine we activate is sending out a signal, calling to its siblings across the galaxy. Look, there." She pointed to a sequence of new lights appearing along a spiral arm. "Those are more engines waiting to be restored." The chamber filled with murmurs of amazement as the true scale of the builder's project became clear. This wasn't just about saving one cluster. It was about preserving stellar stability across the entire galaxy. The builders knew this day would come, Sarah explained, her hands moving across the controls with practiced confidence. They left these engines as guardians, protecting the stars themselves, but they needed to ensure that whoever awakened them would understand how to maintain them properly. Through the displays, they watched as the last critical stars in their cluster stabilized. The warning sirens had fallen silent, replaced by the steady hum of machinery working as intended. Sarah began the final calibration sequence, cementing the engine's connection to the newly stable network. "We'll need to establish engineering teams," she said, turning to address the gathered delegates. "Not just quantum scientists and AI specialists, but people who understand mechanical principles. Every species that has maintained their connection to practical engineering will have a part to play." The orrery above had settled into a smooth, steady motion, reflecting the renewed stability of their corner of space. But the lights indicating other engines continued to appear, spreading across the galactic map like stars emerging at dusk. "Humanity may be young compared to many species," Sarah continued, "but we've never lost touch with our engineering roots. That's what the builders were waiting for, not the most advanced civilization, but one that remembered the importance of understanding how things truly work." She initiated the final power-up sequence, watching as the engine's systems settled into their intended rhythm. The builder's message had been clear. Technological advancement alone wasn't enough. True progress meant maintaining wisdom across generations, never losing sight of fundamental principles. "The next step will be training more engineers," Sarah said, her eyes on the galactic map. "Every engine we restore will need maintenance teams who understand both the mechanical and the advanced systems. We're not just preserving stars. We're preserving knowledge." Outside, the stars of the Centaurus cluster shone with renewed strength, their light carrying the promise of a stable future. Humanity had proven itself worthy of the builder's legacy, not through overwhelming technological advancement, but through the simple wisdom of remembering their roots. Sarah placed her hand on the warm metal of the control panel, feeling the engine's steady pulse. The builder's greatest creation wasn't just the machine itself. It was the lesson it taught about the eternal value of practical wisdom in an advancing universe.